Gavel to order this meeting of the Public Safety Committee on November 29th. Roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka.
I'm here.
Alderwoman Sims, absent. Alderman Lockmiller.
Here.
Alderman Erger.
Here.
3 of the 4 board members are present.
Thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda is the approval or amendment of the agenda itself. I understand from Alderman Lockmiller there may be a change.
Yeah, I'd like to see if we could postpone item 9D, MADS traffic calming, until next month's meeting in December, so a couple of the applicants,
Does any man in the committee have any objections? Without objection, I'll make that change to the agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Hearing none, that amended agenda will stand as approved. The next item is citizen comments. Anybody who wishes to make a comment to this committee with regard to a public safety issue in the city of Brentwood, I'll grant you 3 minutes. Identify yourself either online or here in the room, and tell us your name and address. Thank you. I'll close citizen comments and turn us to the report of the committee chairs. As chair, I do not have a report at this meeting. Alderwoman Sims is not here. Alderman Lockmiller?
Yeah, I had a request for us to look at
Get that in the form of a motion to direct staff to study this area of Dorothy Avenue to see if improvements can be made for traffic allowances.
a left-hand turn.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call, please. Yes.
Plufka.
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller.
Yes.
Alderman Erger.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Alderman Erger, do you have a report? No report. Thank you. City Administrator, Madam City Administrator, do you have a report?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, it's time to hear from our departments. We'll start with our Police Department. Chief Spees.
Good evening, everybody. The crime report for the last few weeks has been somewhat encouraging. We've had
Recording in progress.
Oh,
Good to know.
we've had some nighttime car break-ins, but luckily they have not been originating in our neighborhoods for most of them. Most of the areas that they've hit have been parking lots and our garages and places that are open at night that have employees working at night. A couple places came online with flock cameras. Meridian is one of them. They've been consistently hit with car clotting, so their company is now online with us with flock. So we'll have access to their cameras as well. A couple things of interest from our crime report. On the 6th of November, we got a call for a burglary in progress over at the villas, and our officers got over there. And Red was placed into service a couple times here this month, and this was one of the cases. TJ and Red got there, and they actually jumped the guy, chased him, and tracked him down using the canine. The guy had just stolen a car from one of our parking lots over in the industrial park area, and then was going to go out and do some more crime in the stolen car. So it was a good arrest. Second one that I was going to mention was a one that happened just the other day on the 25th. We got a flock alert of a stolen vehicle on the Deerbergs lot, and when the officer got to the location, they were breaking into cars at the Deerbergs. The car took off. They attempted to stay with it for a short distance. It had an accident up at Hanley and the entrance to the highway. 2 guys bailed out and ran. Both of them were caught. They got a $100,000 bond issued on the driver of the vehicle, so that was a nice arrest during this period of time. The other thing I was going to mention is we currently have with the shopping area that's extremely busy right now, We have overtime retail officers assigned to the area, and we will up until the end of the year. It's actually been a very successful program so far, and that we've rotated our on-duty officers, we rotated some of the park guys, and we rotated guys working overtime into that area. So we've got a strong presence up there. The last thing I was going to mention on the report for the PD was the protest that we had last week, the pro-Palestinian protest. It was about 70 or 75 people. They indicate they're coming back. So we're going to deal with these folks probably for a while in the next couple months as the war in Israel goes on. But I really think that it's going to foreshadow what 2024 looks like for us in terms of protests, because this presidential election that's coming up is going to be hotly contested in many ways. Back when Trump was president, we had protests then, and I think they're really going to heat up in 2024. So we're retraining our officers in our CDT, and we're making some adjustments on how many officers are trained for CDT in response to protests. So hopefully when it gets there, we'll be matched up with our sister cities here and be ready for those protests as they come, because I'm confident they are coming. The last thing I was going to mention was as part of our officer safety role play training that we're doing, we are on the 14th and on the 7th of December, we're doing the tactical pursuit training. So we will be going to parking lots and deploying spike strips, practicing that, training our officers. And we'll be doing the role play training on the arrest of people in a stolen car. So it will be, for us, it would be a felony car stop scenario that we will practice. And we're also going to build in foot pursuit scenarios where officers will actually engage in a chase with our role players. The reasons for those are pretty obvious. These are extremely dangerous things for our police officers to do. So we want to practice them. We want to build in some parameters for them. And nothing perfect about any of that when it happens, but at least this practice, I think, will position them better to be able to handle it. So we'll be doing that in 2 days in December and then on into January. It looks like we'll probably start the detail sometime late January or early February is what our goal is, so that everybody's trained up. We have to hit it in a 28-day period as well in the pay period. So that's all I had. If anybody had any questions.
Have any questions from the committee? Steve?
Chief, I was listening to the Public Works meeting, and they were talking about Brentwood days, and there was a comment made in there that you were needing an ordinance for festival activities. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, well, obviously we've got till September of next year. Right. So after the first of the year, Major Simpson's going to be presenting to the public safety, first of all, of course, and probably through Mr. O'Keefe, but an ordinance that would require, it's probably going to be modeled after ones that St. Peter's has, O'Fallon has. Really, it excludes people with the ability to bring in guns. It may address backpacks, which is part of the problem. So we're really looking to, challenge is going to be getting people into the festival. So we're trying to navigate our way through that as we talk about what 2024 is going to look like. Last year it was, it was well attended, but frankly, you could pretty much walk in there and do with whatever you wanted to walk in there with, and it's a scary proposition as you try and police that. So the ordinance will address that, but we're going to have to funnel people in. If we have an ordinance, we're going to have to funnel them in.
I have two questions. One, and I don't know whether you can speak to either one of them. There is a move in the legislature, it seems like there is every year, to beefing up criminal penalties related to leaving the scene. That legislation, as that comes up, is that the type of legislation that you generally in your practice and experience would support, or would you encourage folks to?
For leaving the scene of an accident?
Yeah, well, leaving a scene where a officer has stopped them.
Oh, you're talking about like a felony fleeing?
Yes.
Yeah, we've been railing on that consistently, trying to get some teeth to the law. So the felony fleeing law, as you know, constitute a felony when you run from any policeman in Missouri and drive recklessly to get away from a police officer. Unfortunately, even if the case is issued by the prosecutor's office, it often ends up in a probation scenario. So really, what would have best bite is if we had some version of minimum mandatory on it. I don't know if there's an appetite for that or not, but that's what's being discussed. This has created such a dangerous environment for citizens and for police officers and for suspects that there's a strong argument that we've got to do something different than what, because these cars are, everyone that's doing crime that the officers try and stop runs from us. Every one of them, just about. So, and instantly creates a deadly threat to everybody around them with the way they drive.
And the other question I had to do with your comment with regard to the upcoming election year. Given Brentwood's proximity and location within St. Louis County, it seems to be an attractive spot for a protest. Is there any thought given to, or should this committee take up anything to perhaps promote an ordinance within the city that would designate free speech areas? I mean, you see them in public events sometimes. They will designate an area as a free speech area in an effort to provide those folks the opportunity to express themselves, but also do it in a manner that is somewhat more safe and somewhat more controlled.
So here's the challenge with that, and this is over the last several years with protests. Protesters want to take over highways and they want to take over busy intersections and streets. They do it for impact. And the more law enforcement has challenged them, the more lawsuits are being filed, the more complaints are filed against the police. It has morphed into a scenario where we, really breaking the law, allow them to go out on the street, but we tell them you get 10 minutes, you get 15 minutes. Now, we push them as hard as we can onto sidewalks and safe areas, obviously. But if they're hell-bent on getting in the middle of Eager and Brentwood, we would literally be in a position where we're locking up 50, 100 people in order to stop that. That becomes a real issue for us. And they're not going to probably go easily. So they're going to lay on the ground. They're going to want to be chained. They'll chain themselves together, things like that. So if you give them that opportunity for 15 minutes of a sit down and then they leave, what law enforcement generally has found is it's just easier to manage it that way. So that's a roundabout way to answer your question. You can give them places to protest, but if they're hell-bent on getting out in the middle of the street, they're going to go in the middle of the street. And they're, if you remember the protest, the Black Lives Matter one from 2020, that's what they did. They walked down our streets and they were 500 deep, and we would have been hard-pressed keeping them off the streets.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Next department would be the Fire Department. Chief Cottrell.
Good evening. Yeah, thank you. I will try and be brief on this one as I have other items later in the meeting. To provide an update on training, so in the late October and then in the beginning of November, our crews wrapped up a very unique opportunity out at Six Flags in Eureka, and they performed some high-angle rescues that just simply aren't available elsewhere. So they had some new management come in at Six Flags. It worked with all the agencies in St. Louis County. It was very beneficial. In addition, the Assistant Chief took the drone, and there was a drone component to each training, so that it was just a good collaboration of everybody working together. So very valuable situation for our people. Last week, we were notified by our former medical director, Dr. Rapoff, of his official resignation from SSM. It was effective last week. We continue to operate under a medical control agreement with SSM Health. They met yesterday and they were to name an interim physician to take that role, but we have not been notified of who that is. So just information sharing. I know I brought a concern to you last month on that. We're keeping a very close eye on this. I don't anticipate any changes for Brentwood for 2024, but I do for 2025 and beyond. So we will certainly communicate that with you. The Assistant Chief and others within the fire department continue to work with our records management upgrade, with ESO Solutions. That is going smoothly. It is a lot of work, but it's going to help our organization in the end. So I believe right now we have a March 1st cutover date, so we have a lot of data to exchange in between now and then. Couple recent alarms I wanted to touch on. One of them, we were very fortunate. We had a kitchen fire in Brentwood Forest, and the home, or the resident was home, was alerted by the smoke detector. So both being great news compared to what happened earlier this year in some residents up there. So it was contained to the kitchen, but it has quite a bit of smoke damage. We're working with the insurance companies now, and they're getting it repaired, but I don't think she's going to be displaced for very long. So quick calling 911 and a very quick response really minimized the damage. Sunday morning was quite the event down at Laclede Groves Senior Living in Webster Groves. It's a large complex. I don't know how familiar you are with that facility. And this was one of the original buildings on that property. Was not sprinklered. I will give them props. Construction was very good. However, we had our hands full. They did make several rescues. Not any members from our department, but the other firefighters did. We rescued several people from their balconies who were not able to escape because there was so much smoke in the building. But very good management, scene management, and crews working together. So to my knowledge, just one serious injury, and everybody else, no one else was transported to the hospital. So that was good news. Final piece I'll touch on is, I know a couple of you aldermen are familiar, we've had over the years concerns with our HVAC systems within the fire station. And fortunately, since we brought this company on board, and after making multiple upgrades within the station, the service agreement expired, or will expire in the end of December. So we were due for a new service agreement, and with the change in the city's purchasing policy, this now falls where we can seek bids as opposed to doing an RFP. And since we have it under control, we moved our service from a monthly to a quarterly based. So they will only come in on a quarterly basis. And the contractor said we definitely are good to do that based on the stability of the building now. So we will see a reduction of $1,700 moving forward in fiscal year 24. So as a cost savings, I just wanted to highlight. Any questions?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello. Have a few updates to provide here. The Hanley Industrial Court, those pedestrian crossings, signs, pavement markings, all that's done. I know it's been in use for probably a couple months now, or at least 4 or 5 weeks. I reached out to Hoffman Brothers, see if they had any feedback. I'll wait to hear back. Haven't heard anything just yet. On Manchester Road, those pedestrian beacons that would be at the mid-block crossings, MoDOT's predicting around, I believe December 18th is the latest. So everything's been ordered. It'll be added whenever they get that. Right now their focus was getting the pavers done at the tunnel, so that should conclude this week. Over on Litzinger Road, we have all the signs. We called in locates. We actually bought some special U-bolts. They're not here yet. The reason for those would be to mount some of those signs to the existing streetlights that are on the north side. Because if we pound a post in, we can't do that in some areas because there's too many utilities. There's the power for the lights, and then there's other utilities, services, gas and water that cross through there. So the idea was on the south side, we'll primarily use posts. On the north side, we'll use the special bolts. We'll put the signs up. We have the stencils. The paint machine is all ready to go. So we'll start putting stencils along that area as well. And the area from High School to Brentwood Boulevard, that lends itself better to stencils on the north side, just because you've got the bump in where the parking is. And if we put a sign next to a parked vehicle, you're probably not going to see it, so it'd be kind of wasted. And then the next thing would be, there was a request from Alderwoman Harder to possibly put in like the flashing stop signs like the one you see at McKnight and York. And she had several areas she'd like for us to consider. I did do a little closer investigation on the price, It's probably closer to $2,000 without shipping. I don't know if we'll get a discount if you ordered more than one. We do have one in stock. We always keep one as a spare in case something gets damaged. This kind of precipitated due to the fact that we put one in at Litzinger and Bremerton. So if you're going westbound Litzinger, right at Bremerton, McGrath, you'll see a flashing stop sign because there was concerns that people didn't see it. You know, with both combined schools there, it's not a good idea to have people going through that intersection without stopping. So that was just for your own information. We don't have it budgeted for this many. I don't know if we would, you know, want to do a little more investigation on this and bring it back with a little better cost analysis. Because if you put one in, like, say, at Brentwood in high school, it's like, well, which direction would you put it? Would you put it at all four? You know, that's going to add up to over $8,000 just for one intersection. Or is it better served on high school? You know, there might be more traffic going that way.
Well, it sounds as though at the end of the staff response, it talks about the placement at the gazebo. What about, that makes more sense?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if police has any issues with people rolling that stop sign. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Alderwoman Harder's main concern is people blowing through that stop sign. So maybe a cost analysis is worth it, or we'll talk further about what side she had in mind when she proposed that to
Right.
you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, if we do a little bit better identification of which direction and that, then we can put together a cost analysis. And, you know, I know we don't necessarily have it in this year's budget, but I mean, we'll be reset here in a few more weeks and then the 24 budget, which is where it would be coming out of.
Right.
Just because I know it's about a 6 or 8 week process. If you ordered it today, you're not going to get it in 23. The last thing I have that's not actually on here, over at high school near Harrison, I know Alderman Erger had mentioned about that. It's not a speed bump. It's because they leveled out an area for the crosswalk, but there is a vertical curve that you feel whenever you're in a vehicle. You'll feel your car rise up and come back down. We did actually order, and we have them in stock. They're bump ahead signs. So, and we identified where to put those. And then just this week, we ordered a bump stencil because I was like, well, because there's parking on both sides of high school while the school's in session. And I don't think you'll see the signs. So I said, well, if we put the stencil, white paint with some glitter in it, you know, it's just those reflective beads, put that in advance on both sides, I think that would help mitigate some of that issue.
Yeah, I originally started with the signs. I think paint would be more than sufficient. It's just
Yeah.
you don't see it until you hit it,
Right.
kind of thing. So I think paint is more than sufficient, but if we want to install the signs as well.
Yeah, we thought the paint would be good, but then if it snows or there's leaves, it's gonna obscure
Yeah.
it. So we thought, well, what if we did both? You know,
Yeah.
the stencil wasn't that bad. It's reusable. I think it was maybe $200, but
Alright.
you know, you can use it dozens of times. It's just a polyethylene material. So that
Much
was the goal.
appreciated.
Trying to remember, is that the actual walkway that's raised?
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah, and the school, whenever we reached out to them, they said they weren't going to like mill or do any like geometry changes to high school. And I was like, well, whenever we mill and overlay that whole street, then it will be smoothed out, you know, that slope would be more consistent.
Oh,
But I don't know when we're gonna do that.
That hump will go away when we do that?
When we do that, yes.
Oh,
They
okay.
only did like a little short span, you know, just for the crosswalk, and they didn't run it out on either side of it for any distance.
I just didn't know if there was ADA accessible, or,
They said it is. I've not checked it, but that's it.
I have two things real quick. You had said, one of the lights, the light at Middlesex and York,
Mhm.
solar light, has a tree branch growing over it, and you had an arborist look at it, and he said
Right.
it could be something that we could remove, but he'd have to look at it. He wanted to look at it during this dormant
Yes.
season. I was just reminding you about that. And
It is, yeah. Whenever I spoke with Adam, I believe it's in December. It's in the next few weeks. It is added to the Davy tree list. It will be
Okay.
taken care of.
Wonderful. And then the other thing is, we had a traffic study done on White Avenue, which did not support the use of calming tools because the lack of volume and the lack of speed over speed limit. The suggestion was made that we might do that study one other time and do it in warmer weather. And so I was just gonna sort of plant the seed to ask if you would, perhaps in like April or May, set up a second round or another round of analysis just to see whether there's a seasonal difference in that traffic, or whether, you know, whether it's wintertime or summertime, it just does not support the traffic calming.
Okay. Yep, we can do that.
Yeah, just one other question with the street lights on Eager by Anthology, the senior center. Have we had any conversation with them or communication regarding those lights and
Are
why
you
they
talking
might?
about on the north side of Eager, the Richmond Heights side?
Yeah, technically. Right
Are they
across
not
from the
working,
parking
or-
garage for the CIBC building right there
Okay,
on the backside. I have a call into them. I haven't heard back. I don't know if maybe just the bulbs are out or if they turned them off.
but it's not the ones in the public right away, like on the north side, right behind the curb? Those are the
Yeah.
cities. They are?
They are.
Okay. I can reach out to Richmond Heights and.
Well,
let
I don't
them
know if they're the cities or if they're anthologies. That's what I'm
Oh.
trying to figure out with my call to them.
Yeah, because I knew the ones that are decorative, kind of look like a UFO type shape on top. Those were the
Yeah.
cities.
All right.
They'd
yeah.
gone out before, but I think it was something electrical. It's not like it was the bulbs. It was something to do with the wiring that they had shorted
Gotcha.
out or something. That was years ago.
All right.
I can drive through there now. I mean, it should be dark, and
Yeah,
that way I can give them
it's
a
pretty
better
dark.
idea
I
of which
mean,
ones.
there's 3 or 4 of them that are out, but then further down Eager, like when you get down by Brentwood Forest area, those are all on. So it must
Okay.
be something pertaining to just those 2 or 3.
So that would be basically between like Bobolink and high school. That, like Bobolink's like closer to what used to be Magna Bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Dan, do we have more speed tables baked into next year's budget?
Yes, yeah, we don't have any more in stock. I actually went through the garage. We used everything we had purchased for this year. So we would have to purchase something anew for whether it's white or Madge or whatever.
Okay, but you've got that factored in to your
Yes.
capital budget?
Yeah, it all comes out of the same capital, you know, whether it's a speed cushion or some other traffic controlling device.
Okay, thank you.
Yep,
Thank you, Dan.
all right, thanks.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Did everybody had a chance to review the meeting minutes, and are there any changes, redactions to it? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you. We have no old business. On the new business, we have EMS billing services as the first item on that agenda, and we welcome back our fire chief.
Hopefully see my smile from there. I'm glad to present this recommendation to the Public Safety Committee. We performed an RFP for EMS billing services that was conducted in October. We opened bids on October 31st. We had 3 vendors submit bids. The bid tabulation is also attached. So after our research and our recommendation, we are asking for approval to continue services with EMS MC. We do have a minor change that we are requesting with them, and that is to remove the reporting software from their contract and put that under the city of Brentwood's umbrella. It becomes a fixed cost for us at that point, and then we will see greater revenue generated than what we were paying for that cost from EMS MC. So that offset will handle our expense. 5.4% will be the new rate under net collections. The agreement is currently in the hands of Mr. O'Keefe. So if approved by this committee, I anticipate it being on the December 18th agenda.
Very good. So can I get a motion that the full board consider and approve extending or renewing the billing services agreement with EMS and Consultants Incorporated, otherwise known as EMS/MC?
moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Do we need to add the part about the computers and everything in that
Is that
motion?
built in? I thought that was built into the.
Is it?
No, sir. The
Whatever it was that you mentioned earlier about,
Yeah, the
Something.
the software
Software.
issue.
Okay, so removing the software, no, we have that for 2024, we have that
Okay.
offset, yes.
That in mind, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Very much. The next item on the agenda also involves our fire department. It's the ARPA grant Central Core Fire Training Center.
Yes, so I will do my best to streamline this, make it as simple as possible. I am here seeking support from this committee for technically three grant applications. One being for the fire training facility at the Shrewsbury site, which we are currently under a lease agreement with. The state of Missouri has opened up the ARPA funds for fiscal year '24. And the major change for '24, they have priorities listed, but they also removed the maximum amount you can apply for and match. So you can apply whatever dollar amount, but you must be able to match 50-50.
Can I stop you there and just ask
Yes,
a
sir.
question of our city administrator?
Yes, sir.
Because of that change in ARPA fund requisition, for lack of a better word, does this have to be board approved to allow our staff to apply for the grants?
Not always, but we are bringing it to the board's attention because there are financial ramifications for the city long-term. There have been grant applications in the past where they require a resolution by the governing body. I have not reviewed that, so, okay, this one does not require it, but we're just bringing it to your attention so you know.
So the implication is that if we apply for the ARPA grants, we have considered and accepted the various conditions that might exist in terms of how we can spend that money, that kind of thing?
So, yes.
Okay. So, I mean, I read through the proposal, and I don't want to cut you off, and I'll let you can present. But I think what's before the board is you want guidance from the board toward the full Board of Aldermen to say, yes, this is a good idea to go ahead and do this. Okay.
Right.
So with that in mind, can you speak to what the potential downside might be for the city in making these applications? Because I don't see one. I mean,
Sure. The question becomes, what if one application is approved and the others are not? So my proposal is to provide cost sharing to cover $500,000 in expenses for the construction of a fire training facility. The downside would be if we are awarded one grant application but not another. So yes, we've reduced our overall obligation, but we still have expenses. So that's my concern of what could be a downfall.
but if you don't apply at all, you're still going to have that same
If you don't
concern.
apply, you get nothing.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. And I interrupted you kind of mid-presentation. I didn't
Yes,
mean
sir.
to do that.
The second, let me explain the grant application for the fire training facility. So we contacted the state, and being a regional or state impact for capital project is a priority. We explained the regional impact, they clearly understood it, and the state's recommendation was one grant application for that property, or for that facility, not each city making a grant application. So after meeting with the city managers and the city administrator, that was the decision that was made. The city of Clayton was willing to submit that grant application on all of our behalf. And then they would be controlling the flow of that if awarded. The second component and priority are the radio replacements. And police and fire have had radio replacements in the capital budget for a few years. We do have funds assigned to that project for fiscal year '25. And the placeholder right now is $700,000. We are still waiting on some accurate bids, but we know we're going to be very close to that. this grant, the monies have to be spent by June of '26. So we would be able to extend into fiscal year '25 for Brentwood to make this complete. So that's what the components I wanted to share.
Do you have a concern that participating in this multi-municipality effort to gain money for the training facility could put in jeopardy our own specific application for the replacement of the radio equipment?
I do not, because they have different priorities listed.
Okay.
And the grant application.
And there's no more a cap, there's not a cap on it
Correct.
anymore?
Correct. The state has 15 million allocated just for these priorities.
Okay. So with that in mind, can you just, I mean, I know you're in favor of this, but
Absolutely.
do you see a downside to us making a positive recommendation for the consideration of the full board?
I do not.
Okay. With that in mind, I would entertain a motion that this committee recommend to the full board that we approve the city's participation in the SFY '24 ARPA grant program for the purpose of constructing a fire training facility and for the replacement of the radio equipment.
Motion.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Plufka?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
Chief, thanks.
Police Department has, went to BOLA and requested that we be authorized to use asset forfeiture funding to do some improvements in our small gym at the police department, including, a new Stairmaster machine and some weight equipment. So that's what's before you. The total is kind of a bit of a moving target. It's around 16,000. It shouldn't be much more than that, but we're, probably in a position to do a sole source bid on it because the equipment we have came from the same company. We want to make it consistent, so that's part of the request as well.
Madam City Administrator, can I ask a question? Why is this before public safety and not Ways and Means?
We usually take it to both, and the chief asked me, should I just take it to Ways and Means? Because it's,
Mostly about the expenditure.
do both.
Because, I mean, you know,
Sometimes we take it to Ways and
Okay.
Means, and they will
Okay.
say, take it back to public safety.
so, well, I don't want to speak ill of the board member that's not here with us, but, from the standpoint of the Public Safety Committee, I mean, this obviously promotes the, you know, the fitness of our officers, and there, I mean, there's no downside here from a public safety standpoint. It's using space that's already being used for that purpose. It upgrades it. Is that correct?
That is.
Okay.
Just to be clear, the asset forfeiture funds that the police department has have very specific uses. This falls in the parameters of that expenditure, so.
With that in mind, can I get a positive recommendation from this committee to move forward with the purchase of this equipment, upgrade of this equipment, with the use of asset forfeiture monies?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Plufka?
Yes.
Alderman Lockmiller?
Yes.
Alderman Erger?
Yes.
That is the last item under new business. We do have another citizen comment section. We have nobody here in the room, I don't think, that wants to address this committee. I can't imagine why they would. Is there anybody online?
No one with their hand raised.
Okay, so seeing nobody interested in making a comment to this committee with regard to public safety, I declare that section closed, and seeing no additional items on this agenda, I declare that this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
Recording.